So good morning, everyone. Good morning to everyone in India. Good nearing almost afternoon to people in Singapore, Indonesia, and good evening to people in Americas. Uh, I'm happy to say that this is the first Happy New Year, everyone. And this is the last of our introductory seminars as IAB Tech Lab. We did a series of 3 seminars, one on 3rd of December, second on 17th of December, and this at the start of the year rounds up the first phase of introductory seminars that we are doing for this region. The aim of these set of seminars was to kind of bring everyone on the same page regarding the kind of competencies that as an organization we bring to this region. Most of you know IAB Tech Lab, most of you have heard of it, most of you have encountered it. But yes, the idea was to give everyone an overview of all our competencies. In this last webinar, we are going to talk about brand safety, a very big topic, possibly the reason the entire ad tech is here in terms of just disseminating ads is the first part of the ad tech, then brand safety becomes the most important second part of the ad tech industry. And there is a significant ad fraud. Most of the people of you know that in the industry, billions and billions of dollars are lost. And so the idea is here today in this webinar, we want to bring to you the kind of competencies, the assets that we have in order to counter this situation. We have a very distinguished panel today. Shelley, slide. We have Amit Shetty. Amit Shetty is the senior director for products, and he leads our programmatic and the brand safety channels. And he would be here to talk to you about brand safety. We have Shelley, who is the vice president for the entire product development for IAB Tech Lab, and he would kind of give the supporting commentary on all other stuff. And lastly and least, we have Amit Bhavnani from MediaNet. If you haven't heard about the contextual engine, the proprietary contextual engine that they have developed, we need to possibly do a session on that. That's possibly the future that we are talking about in coming times and very relevant to the state of the industry at this point of time. Amit leads the entire talent, the entire engineering asset for MediaNet based out of Mumbai in India. Shelley, I will hand it over to you to kind of lead us to the introduction of IAB Tech Lab, a short introduction for everyone. And then we will jump onto the topic of today of brand safety and SCAD networks.
Thank you, Chimen, for that introduction, and welcome Amit and Amit Shetty and everyone who's joined. So for the agenda today, we'll have like the introduction to Tech Lab and standards portfolio. So I'll just walk through all our work that we do and how we engage with the industry. Then, of course, Amit Shetty is going to cover our portfolio that is for ensuring brand safety and mitigating ad fraud. And also we covered it briefly in our second session that we had in December, but we didn't have all the details, but now we have all the details. So Amit's also going to cover the SCAD network solution for programmatic. This is for the changes that iOS changes that Apple has made recently for attribution. So Amit's led the programmatic working group developing the full solution, so he'll walk through that. And then, of course, we'll hear more from Amit Bhavnani about how they've been interacting with the IAB Tech Lab and what they have benefited and how they work with us. And then I'll hand it back to Shavin after that, so that he can talk about how to engage within the APAC region. And then, of course, we have a Q&A. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A tab at any time, and we'll cover those in the end. So with that, I just want to start with our mission. So IAB Tech Lab was kind of created or spun out of IAB US sometime in late 2014. So it's like almost 7 years now. The charter for us is to engage the global community so that we can share the cost and share the benefits, to develop foundational technologies. And we are very member driven. So all of our work is done and led by our members. And the idea is to develop these technologies that are comprising of standards, software, and services with broad availability and utility by design. And the whole objective is to enable growth and trust in the digital media ecosystem. And the way we do it is through the process we created, through the availability that we make of all the work that we do in a very neutral, transparent, open source way. And we are a non-profit organization, so there's no profit or profit motive or objective to report to any other stakeholder other than our members and the industry. So with that mission, what we have done is to try and create a transparent programmatic system that is brand safe, that allows companies to grow and scale based on uh, uh, at a global scale, so that the buyers, sellers, marketers, and publishers can transact with confidence. So these are like the four kind of broad audiences that we kind of support. So for buyers, we want to create things that create the trust in the quality and availability of the supply. For sellers, we want them to be able to engage with trusted buyers who are authenticated. And then for marketers, we want to make sure that we protect the safety of the brand at all times. And then for publishers, we want to provide protect the value, quality, and integrity of their content. So you may already be familiar with some of our work. So this is kind of a word blob of all the different standards that we have produced so far. OpenRTB, VAST, the TCF, which is the privacy framework for implementing the GDPR regulations in Europe. Similarly, the CCPA for US, and then Open Measurement SDK that we talked about in one of the earlier webinars, and so on. So why do we do this, and why we need to do this is to basically we help and advance and grow the digital media ecosystem by what our standards do is something similar to the common standards that you use today, like a USB or a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, which allows you to connect one device from one company to another device of another company. You can go to anywhere in the world and just turn on your Wi-Fi and log on to the internet, or pair your Bluetooth devices, whether you're in a car or whether you have a Bluetooth headphone or any other device that is there to your phone. So our work is similar. It helps reduce the product development cost for companies, increases the speed to market, and of course, it's all designed to be interoperable with each other, which helps in fueling the market innovation, allows companies like yours to focus more on their product and differentiation versus trying to do the routine stuff or reinvent the routine stuff. And that, of course, helps mitigate risks. And we do this across all platforms, whether it's connected televisions, mobile phones, mobile devices, video displays, or desktop displays, and audio. So we have standards that cover all of the cross-screen, as well as, I should call it cross-media, because we do cover video and audio both. So we try to work in all of the key areas that the industry is trying to tackle the challenges with. So first one being the identity, data, and privacy. And the second is the brand safety and ad fraud, which we're going to talk about today in more detail. The third is ad experiences and measurement, and then the effectiveness of the programmatic real-time bidding channel. And how we do this work is in the identity, data, and privacy. Our objective is to make sure that we achieve privacy by design across all our products, specifications, and protocols. And we are able to address all of the global legislative jurisdictions and driving the consumer choice and transparency and control for the consumers over their data. And in brand safety, we are trying to build in brand safety and ad fraud together. We want to build over our existing work that we've already done, like app.ads.txt and sellers.json, and then push adoption of the newer taxonomies, newer versions of taxonomies that were released late last year. And then we're working on some new, very interesting work for authentication in the supply chain with ads.cert and with OpenRDB3 to increase further the safety and the security of the supply chain. In the ad experiences and measurement, our main focus this year is going to be on cross-platform development. So we already have measurement solutions through OMSDK for in-app. We just launched the OMSDK for web, for video in December of last year. And then we are working on launching for connected TV, which will cover like the tvOS, the Android TV devices, and Roku, and potentially other devices in future. And then in the programmatic, we want to promote the adoption of OpenRDB 3.0 as a new baseline, and then support the trend towards contextual and transparency, contextual targeting and transparency, considering the new approaches and enhanced practices to ensure that there are certain baseline of best practices that everyone's following in the programmatic channel. So that's our 2021 work plan. This is like a quick summary of the key standards that we have in all of these areas. In the identity, data, and privacy, we have the Project Rearc that many of you may have already heard about, and where we are working on the addressability, accountability, and then we have the data label and the data transparency effort for the accountability, as well as transparency in the data, buying and selling of data. And then, of course, we have the transparency and consent framework and the CCPA and other privacy frameworks that we are developing to address regional regulations. Of course, in brand safety and ad fraud, it's ads.txt, sellers.json, supply chain object, content taxonomy that's becoming very important as we get to contextual targeting, and also for brand safety purposes. And then in the ad experiences, we have VAST for video delivery. We created a new protocol last year, CIMIT, for interactivity in video. MRAID is kind of the default standard for in-app advertising. And then we have the new ad portfolio that defines the ad formats. And then the safe frame is our secure ad container, which is being revised this year. And then we have, of course, have the open measurement SDK. And for the audio, we developed the podcast measurement technical guidelines, and we have a compliance program related to it to ensure that advertisers get the right measurement from their podcast spends. And then for programmatic, of course, the default OpenRDB for real-time bidding, OpenDirect for guaranteed programmatic. And then, of course, we have standards like Ad Management API and CATS that we just launched. And time to time, we also provided guidance on like CTV and OTT guidance for IFA, user agent, app store IDs, how to manage and maintain those. And then we have the spiders and bots for traffic detection and filtering lists for, bot. It's mainly around the bot traffic detection and invalid traffic detection. And then we have a working group that looks at emerging technologies, currently focusing on blockchain or distributed ledger technologies and cryptography. Moving on, these are the priorities for our 2021. I just wanted to kind of bring that forward. We're definitely focused on the addressability, privacy-centric addressability through the React project. And then we want to provide the technical standards for privacy in a new global privacy framework. And then we will continue focusing and working hard on the supply chain transparency for addressing brand safety, fraud, and data. And then improve the measurement and attribution accuracy and consistency through open measurement SDK, through our VAST protocols and podcast measurement. This is a quick kind of overview of the adoption of different standards. We have pretty good global adoption. As you can see, ads.txt is it's actually not thousands, but it's probably in millions of companies that have adopted that globally. Sellers.json also was like in just in the first 6 months, 220 plus companies, but I think right now it's around 500 plus. And Open Measurement SDK is about 85 as of like last week that have adopted. Half are actually non-US companies, and about 23 or so are Asia Pacific companies. We are a global company compared to IABs, which are more regional and are by country or by region. Tech Lab is a global entity. We have a global charter, and we work with all the local regional IABs across the globe. And we have a board that reflects the global nature of our work, as well as the large influencer companies in the media ecosystem. So just a quick slide on how we work with IABs and how we are different than IABs. So IABs will typically work on market development, focus on people from your companies that are in revenue departments or in commercial departments or sales and marketing. Those are typically the people who would be interested in working with the IABs, and IAB works to make sure that they are supporting their work. So that includes like education and certification, research, policy, guidelines and business standards, and then of course they do a lot of events and networking. Whereas Tech Lab focuses more on technical standards. So we kind of support your product development departments, which include like standardizing protocols and specifications, developing software and tools. We also provide compliance services to ensure that the implementations are correctly done and your partners can trust your implementations. And we also do supporting education and events like this one, for example. So together we provide you the capability to build your own proprietary innovation, your own packaging and pricing and competition, and you can focus on all of those activities by using the foundational work that Tech Lab and IAB does together. So what are the benefits that you would get of becoming a Tech Lab member? One is like build trust by adopting the standards. You can drive the ROI. You can influence the industry by participating in our activities. You can connect with your peers in the product and engineering divisions of other companies and learn from them. And you get a heads up. You can activate things faster and earlier. And of course, we do give discounts to our members on some of the events and other services that we offer. So with that, I would hand it off to Amit Shetty for taking us down the brand safety and ad fraud details.
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, everyone. I'm Amit Shetty, and I've been leading the programmatic and brand safety and ad fraud efforts at the Tech Lab. Today, my first part is going to be covering the brand safety and ad fraud related efforts, and then I'll also cover the iOS 14 related updates around scan networks. Can you go to the next slide, Sherry? So brand safety and ad fraud are closely related, but they really are separate things. Brand safety is probably more around in the discussion around context that of the ad, right? So making sure that your ad is running in a place which that you're okay with, that it is running in an environment that you're not worried about your brand being impacted. You also have other things like fraudulent traffic, malware, and all those things, which fall a little bit more under the in a mix between brand safety and ad fraud. So all of these are sort of related, and our answer to actually most of these things is really transparency, and you'll see that as we go through the next few slides. Sherry, next slide. So this covers the set of standards that are covering our brand safety efforts. What you have on the left is probably the one that I'll be covering the most, and that's around taxonomies. Taxonomies are basically a language to describe either a piece of content or the ad itself. This is basically metadata about about that content or the ad, and this is more in the categorization of that content. The floor and suitability framework is something that we worked with GARM and Forex, and actually I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's the core of the brand safety and suitability effort within the taxonomy. In addition to that, we also have other things that we have done in relation to brand safety, things like supporting the actual channel in which context can be passed, whether it's within OpenRTB or using some of the fields within OpenRTB, or within VAST or using macros and such. We also have a number of other efforts going on which are not completed yet with the open measurement, where we are implementing this feature around ad swapping, where if you don't want an ad, if an ad doesn't make sense, it's not brand safe for that particular location, it's possible to swap the ad with a different ad, so that you can have a more relevant ad at least. So there. Finally, something that we don't really talk about too much, that many people don't talk about too much in the context of brand safety, is user experience. And this is actually kind of important because when users have a really bad experience, they sort of do associate that with the ad they're seeing, with the content they're seeing. And so that's the reason why building out ads which have building out both content and ads, actually, I should say, is very important for brand safety. And this is where we have guidance from us, from the Tech Lab, around lean ads, which we released a while back. But we're also partnering with organizations like CBA, Coalition for Better Ads, and others to basically define what makes a good ad unit, talking about the weight of the unit and the sizes and such, as well as other aspects of the unit. And finally, like I said earlier, ad fraud is always associated with brand safety, and so that also does come under the same umbrella. Next slide, Sherry. This is the main thing that we have been working on over the last few months around brand safety at the Tech Lab, and this is the update to the content taxonomy. And actually, I should update this slide. It's no longer proposed. It's final. But basically, what we did was we worked with GARM, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, to define the concepts of brand safety floor categories, as well as suitability levels. So the floor categories are not the official name, the Evil 11, which are basically 11 categories which are considered as really not safe, and ideally should not even be part of should not even be part of the publisher's content. But even if they are, for any reason like freedom of speech and such, it definitely should not be monetized. That's the basic understanding around the brand safety floor categories. And this includes adult and explicit content. It could include content around terrorism and other things. But with that being said, what we realized, what that group realized, was that if you just put in a blanket effort around blanket statement around all these categories, it does get a little too much. You start ending up catching too much of content that really should not be necessarily be blocked. For example, if there is news about a terrorist incident or news about something else, there are while it still is not entirely fully brand safe, you could there are plenty of advertisers and brands who are comfortable with that, with their ads showing up in that content, and that's where the concept of different levels of risk came into play. So low, medium, and high risk tolerance levels were defined, and the link that you see up there on top around the brand from the GARM, that describes for each one of these categories what the floor, high, medium, low risk levels really mean. And so it goes into a lot of detail around that. What we've done and what the content taxonomy does is basically operationalize those concepts. So rather than just taking it at a conceptual level, you can now start tagging content with those categories as well as with the tolerance levels, and then the buyers can take decisions based on that information. So yeah, this is now actually available for is fully released and available to be used. But if you have any feedback, would definitely love to learn more. We especially want to understand from a global perspective. While GARM is a global organization as well, we would love to always learn more about brand safety concerns in every region as well. So please do reach out to me if you have any questions around this. Next slide, Shelley. So there are from an ad fraud point of view, there are really a number of bad actors in the advertising ecosystem, right? So you have fraudulent traffic, which could be either domain spoofing or intermingling of traffic, or spoofing the data about the content, that claiming that it is something, some kind of an ad format that is not, and so on. So there are a bunch of different fraudulent traffic scenarios that are part of advertising. In addition to that, malware is also a concern that's in play. Ads that exploit browser vulnerabilities and try to get to users' data, misleading ads that completely take you off to a different place that you may not want to, and then of course the brand hijacking is a big concern there as well. Both of these are probably different. The main area for each of these are probably different areas. So malware is probably more of a concern for consumers and potentially publishers, while fraudulent traffic is more of a concern for advertisers and maybe a little bit for the publishers, since it impacts their brand as well. But basically, this is the reason why we have two areas of transparency as we talk about these problems. The first section is around sell-side transparency, and the second is around buy-side transparency. And the sell-side transparency is all about the fraudulent traffic, while the buy-side transparency is probably more focused on malware and such. Sherry, next slide. And something that I want to state up front, because this is something that a lot of confusion, there's a lot of confusion around this, is that our specs are not really meant to solve all fraud, right? So even after using our specs, it's not like you're going to solve all fraud. You still need other mechanisms like tools that check the creatives, tools that analyze data to figure out if there is fraud going on, as well as the question of trust, right? So you have organizations like TAG and others who really do the certification that check for your business practices and such, so that you can understand whether it's a real organization or not, and so on. So what we're doing here does not preclude any of that, any of those other things. Those are still needed, but our belief is that by focusing on transparency, by improving transparency in the ecosystem, we reduce the opportunity for fraud, right? So when you know exactly who you're buying from, what you're buying, then it reduces the opportunity for fraud. And that's the reason why we focus on transparency. Sherry, next slide. So these are the sell-side transparency standards that we have. And I just put in one slide. This is probably something that I can talk for half an hour easily, but I'll try to cover that in a minute. But basically, ads.txt and app.txt are, and this is probably one of the most widely adopted and probably one of the most quickly adopted standards from the Tech Lab as well. But this is something very simple. Lists out the authorized sellers of a publisher's or an app developer's inventory, right? So basically, when you want to buy from a specific publisher, now the publisher has the ability to say, hey, these are the set of sellers that I have authorized. And so if you're buying from anybody else, then there is a chance that it's not, then it is definitely not, then it is fraudulent traffic. So that is the goal of ads.txt and app.txt, to clarify who the authorized sellers for a for a given publisher are. Sellers.json is kind of the other side of this. It reveals the sellers' identities is implemented by the intermediaries, the ad tech vendors in the space, and they basically talk about the sellers that they are supporting. And this is used typically in conjunction with the supply chain object, which lists which is basically an OpenRTB extension that you can add to an OpenRTB call, a bid request, so that you know every entity in the chain for that particular impression. And the point really with sellers.json and supply chain object is if you think about ads.txt as providing transparency around the sellers who are that the publisher is authorizing, sellers supply chain object and sellers.json allows you to look at who else is involved in that transaction and make sure that you are comfortable with those entities, that you are happy, that you are okay with working with those entities. So that's the basic idea of those specs. And finally, Ad.Cert. This is something that we released in beta a little while back. It has not been adopted too much for a number of reasons. Part of it is that it is tied to OpenRTB 3.0. But we are right now working on a revamp of Ad.Cert. And the goal for Ad.Cert is really the validation of the sources, right? So basically to make sure that you are, when you're talking to somebody, you know that they are who they claim to be, and also to make sure that the content that they're sending is not modified in any way. So that's the whole idea of using cryptographic signatures to sign either the bid requests or the billing notifications and such, and so on. So this is actually something that we are working on a refresh right now. So if you're interested in this topic, this is a perfect time to join that working group. So this is the overall story around sell-side transparency. I think I have one more slide around transparency, Shelly. And that is the buy-side transparency. So this is the, everything that we talked about is stuff which the sellers are trying to be transparent around and the buyers want. This is the set of things that the buyers should be transparent around and the sellers would like to have, mainly to address malware and so that they know where the ads are coming from. The main thing that we are focusing on right now is buyers.json and demand chain object. So if you think about it, it's exactly the mirror image of sellers.json and supply chain object, and basically provides transparency around the buy-side entities. Trust ID is another is an extension that is already in use in Europe a little bit. It's to kind of define a shared campaign ID that works globally across different systems. And then the third one is something that we will probably look at in the future in 2021, is something to allow people to manage the seat IDs using APIs so that you can disable bad actors faster. So that's a set of transparency standards. Sherry, next slide. So yeah, that's a set of transparency standards. And again, if you have any questions around any of this, please do reach out to me. Next, I think I'll cover, Sherry, do we want to stop for questions or is that at the end?
Yeah, let's do questions at the end. I haven't seen any questions in the Q&A. So just for people who joined afterwards, the introduction that we had, there's a Q&A tab. Please feel free to ask, put in your questions in that at any time, and we'll pick them up at the end.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And so now moving on to the next topic for today, the SK ad networks or iOS 14 updates that we've been working on. Next slide, Shelly. So if you haven't heard about it, the iOS 14 has introduced a number of privacy and related updates. The big one is around changes to the IDFA and how the IDFA can get used. The other ones are around App Store privacy transparency, as they call it, and also probably the other big one is around and the one that I'll be focusing on most today is around app install attribution, where they've provided a different way of doing attribution. There are also updates around limiting the precise geolocation access and also reporting around the tracking that that companies are doing. But the big one is around the big two really are the IDFA changes and the install attribution changes. With IDFA, and actually, I think the first screenshot there shows you. I know it's a little small, but basically, is the idea that you have to ask. Every app has to ask the user for permission to use their IDFA, which has a lot of potential implications, and we'll get to that in a second. But the other part is the changes to the app install attribution. So basically, Apple is saying that you got to use their system to track the app install attributions. And the main thing that's changing around that is that you no longer will have a real-time signaling capability, and it's going to be an aggregated reporting more than anything else. And you have to use something that they call the SK ad networks systems. Can you go to the next slide, Shelley? So first, just a quick overview of some of the takes across the industry on this. It's basically good to see emphasis on user privacy. This definitely, Apple is something. Apple has been focusing on that a lot, and it's something that we have also been focusing on with the Project Rearc discussion. So it's definitely good to see that emphasis there. It is the end of potentially the end of IDFA and attribution as we know it. That's the other take that's going on. And one of the other things is that workarounds are unlikely to work, given that Apple has provided guidance that you're not supposed to use some other system if the user had said no to the IDFA. And I think the other potential impact that I've heard about is that contextual targeting might become a much bigger thing if you have limitations around how you can target the users and really get to how you can address users. And the other one that we definitely are concerned about is consent fatigue, right? So you have GDPR, TCF, and a whole bunch of other requirements already in place. And unfortunately, Apple has not really worked with these other standards and regulatory efforts. So that's unfortunate, and that's one of the other things that people are concerned about. And finally, the fact that this is proprietary is obviously challenging, right? So you are now having to implement a iOS-specific extension, but that's, I guess, part of the challenge in this space. Can you go to the next slide, Sherry? So within the Tech Lab, we have a number of efforts that are directly, I think, useful in the context of these changes. The big one, of course, is the OpenRTB updates that we made and the efforts around the supporting SK ad networks. And that's the one that I'll be talking about the most today. But in addition to that, we have a Project Rearc, which if you're not already heard about it, you should definitely go to the Project Rearc webpage. I think I provided a link in the slides for later. And that's a lot of discussion around attribution, but also about the about the responsible way of approaching targeting and attribution. We also have the content taxonomy, which is going to be important in this world, as well as the audience taxonomy, which provides a standardized way of defining audiences in an aggregate manner. The data label is another effort that is also going to be relevant in the context of the data that you can that systems are providing. Can you go to the next slide, Sherry? So the big one is, like I said, is the OpenRTB extension that we have defined. This allows the IDFV and the authorization status to be passed. But in addition to that, we also have the bid request extension for the SK ad network ID support. So allow for the set of IDs that a particular ad request from an app can support, which allows the other side, the ad decisioning systems, to figure out, okay, can we support app install attribution for this particular app or not? So that's a key part. But as we went through that, initially we just had the capability of sending out a list of SCAD network IDs in the extension, but then we realized that the list actually can be pretty huge, can grow to hundreds and so on, and that would really impact the amount of traffic that goes back and forth in the system, which obviously has a lot of bad implications. So this is the reason why we included a proposal to manage a shared list, a common list that that allows the communication to just be an index, which basically says, okay, this is the part of the, if this is the list of 100 or 300 or 500 IDs, then they support these many of those, and then have an exclusion list and so on. So that's the current proposal that we have, and that list itself is going to be managed by us, by the Tech Lab, and we have the spec itself is ready and is published right now. What we are working on right now is the tool that allows people to submit their SKAD network IDs to the list, and also the tool to view that list. So that's the so you have a blog, and that's where you have the OpenIDB extension. The tool itself, I think, is we have a couple of screenshots, right, Shelly, that I can walk through.
Yeah, we have the screenshots. It's like in staging environment right now.
Right, but basically the call to action is really, if you need, if you believe that you need to be part of the attribution, that need to get attribution, sign up for a SKAD network ID with Apple immediately, and that's usually if you are a DSP or if you are an advertiser who or an agency with a large need to have your own ID. In addition to that, join the programmatic working group and the extensions discussion over there. And so can you go to the next slide, Shelly, actually? All right, so this is the set of screenshots for, this is not, I don't think this is published yet in the tools portal, but it's something that's coming up soon. But basically what we will have is that additional option there for the SKAD network ID list. And if you click on that, it'll provide you an option to register or to access the network IDs. And then this is the registration screen. It's very simple, allows you to provide your name, your domain, and the ad network ID. We will be verifying it with the domain, with your email that you signed up with. And then the next slide. And then for publishers and sellers, basically, who need to access the full list, you have the option to click on that. And you can either download the JSON directly, or you can access an API endpoint to be able to download the list on an ongoing basis. And the way we expect this to work is that we will have a charge for the people registering their SKAD network IDs, an annual fee, I think, of 150 or something like that, a minimal amount that allows us to build this and manage it on a constant basis. And then the actual access is going to be free. Anybody can access this API endpoints themselves. And the idea is that there'll be probably 2 different uses of this API endpoint. Publishers will want to access it to build their P lists and include that within their apps. And we'll also have the SSPs and add SDKs to also capture that and use it for comparisons and other reasons. I think that's all I have on this topic right now. But really, the big call to action is to sign up for that SKAD network IDs if you need it, and also take a look at the extension and the blog post that describes the use of SKAD network IDs. We will be ready with the tool, I think, by the end of February, this tool. And even though Apple has not given a date as to when they will actually start enforcing these features, I think the general consensus around the industry seems to be it'll probably happen late Q1, probably in March or April or something like that. But again, there's no official announcement around that. So I think that's all I have. Shelly, you want to take the?
Yep. Thanks, Amit. Thanks for the details.
Thanks, Amit. So thanks, Amit Shetty. And now we will move to Amit Bhavnani, Amit B. Amit is from media.net. Media.net is also a member of our IAB Tech Lab board. And Amit Bhavnani leads the entire SVP. He's the Senior Vice President for Media.net and leads the entire proprietary contextual engine, which, as I said, is becoming more relevant in the terms of all the changes that are happening in the cookieless world. Possibly in one of the future sessions, we will talk about them. And so over to you, Amit. Please do talk about what you have had in terms of your association with IAB Tech Lab.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really glad to be a part of like a local APAC initiative. So we've been engaged with IAB Tech Labs over the years in multiple ways. To give an example, I was a speaker at the Tech Labs Innovation Day conference, where I had spoken about the need for additional transparency and accountability in the supply chain. And what I noticed was that in a lot of other AdTech conferences, the discussions tend to be at a very, very high level. However, in the Tech Lab conferences, the discussions tend to be a lot more detailed and are geared towards engineering and product. I got a chance to interact and participate with a lot of industry folks and came back with a lot of additional insights. At MediaNet, we are basically part of multiple Tech Lab working groups. For example, we are part of the Project REARC working group. And the goal of Project REARC is to build a long-term solution or a privacy-preserving solution for digital advertising in a manner that does not rely on third-party cookies or device ad IDs. Now, that's like a pretty huge goal, and the implementation of which will have a large impact and will be a pivotal moment in the ad industry. And I'm glad that we at Media.net can participate and have a chance to contribute towards the same. Our teams have also contributed to code that can be found and downloaded from the IAB Tech Labs code bank. For example, when the IAB the OpenRTB 3.0 protocol had newly released, we had built this OpenRTB 2.x to 3.0 converter, which allows participants to quickly adopt 3.0 and get all its benefits. Our teams were extremely excited to build and contribute to something that will be so helpful for many in the industry. Like a lot of you guys would have figured out that we are strong supporters of IAB Tech Labs, and we've doubled down on our commitment last year by joining the Tech Labs board. And we look forward to doing a lot more work with IAB Tech Labs in the years to come.
Thank you, Amit. Thanks a lot, and thanks for all the support, and for all our people who have joined us from Asia Pacific. One of the key reasons that we are moving to Asia Pacific is because we believe a lot of action, the global action, is moving to Asia Pacific. India, China, and Southeast Asia possibly take one half of the humanity and possibly one half of the internet action that's going to happen in the future. And what we are trying to do over a period of time is build forums and platforms for this region itself, so that the regional talent, the regional leadership can start participating, discussing, ironing out the priorities, and start setting an agenda, which in course of time would start leading the global agenda. Even the global companies, and Media.net being a global company, I think is looking increasingly to Southeast Asia, and a lot of its talent is based out of Southeast Asia. So the key reason for IAB Tech Lab increasing its presence in Asia Pacific is to kind of leverage this opportunity that entire Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific has, Taiwan included has, China included has, to build the future of what ad technology is going to be. I would actively encourage, if you haven't been part of us, to write to us in the next slide, Shelly, to one of these IDs and start becoming a part of our communication groups. So at first level, what we are planning to do is to start communicating to all of you, to start bringing you into the loop of the kind of activities that we are doing. Obviously, at some point of time, we are forming a select set of group of the leadership to start ironing out the possibilities and the priorities of this region, where we should contribute to the IAB Tech Lab assets. And most importantly, we do want all of you to become members of IAB Tech Lab and start working at technical working groups level. The technical working groups, like Amit talked about, there are working groups around every area. There was a slide Shelly showed earlier on in terms of all the assets that we have, and there's almost practically a technical working group for each of those boxes. And there, most importantly, it's an opportunity for tech folks to contribute to the future, to interact and network with the other tech folks, and most importantly, as companies, to start having a point of view into the future where ad tech is moving. It's an opportunity for all of you to decide what comes to you rather than be a passive recipient of what happens to you. With that, any questions, Shelly? Do we have any questions on the board, and any questions about membership? Other two, please do write to these emails.
I don't see any questions on the Q&A.
Let's give them a moment if there's somebody.
Yeah, let's wait for a couple of minutes. And you can just raise your hand too. I think that option is there. We can give you the opportunity to talk. So if you just want to speak out your question.
So that's fine. Amit, do you have any things to round off there? Any call to action, other things? Otherwise, Amit Shetty, sorry. We have two on the call.
No. I think I'm good. Definitely, call to action is definitely to join the various working groups that we have ongoing. All the ones that Shelly has listed out. Obviously, there's a wide variety of things that you can work on, and no shortage of need for participation. So please do join and work with us.
Yes, in the attendance list, I do see a lot of familiar names. Thank you for joining, and let's stay connected. Most of you have my email if you want to reach out to me, and please do that, and let's stay connected.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And we will be having a series of like the communication groups that he mentioned. We will be scheduling about 3 to 4 more of these detailed webinars, mostly focusing on addressability and accountability and privacy of data in the next 3 to 4 months. So please do get in touch and be part of those communication groups so you can get regular information about those topics. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, the next agenda is to have deep dive sessions around these topics and invite some of you to be part of that forum and present your case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.